Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, colleagues. Welcome to the Daring Cities 2024 webinar series number 2, Connecting the Dots, Multi-Level Action from Daring Cities to COP29 and COP30. My name is Yunus Arikan. I'm the Director of Global Advocacy at ICLEI, Local Governments for Sustainability. I will be trying to moderate this session today. We have a really nice lineup of our speakers, panelists. We hope you will enjoy today's webinar. For practical technical information, my colleagues are together with ICLEI's Events Management and Conference Knowledge Services Center. We are making sure that this session is recorded, and we also would like to make sure that you can introduce your questions in the chat box if needed. But there will be moments that after every block, we will also open for Q&A section if needed. This session is recorded, and you will also receive the recording afterwards. Before going into today's agenda, I just wanted to recognize the whole scope of this meeting, that where we are with the mission of this the event and this webinar. Daring Cities is brought together by ICLEI, Local Governments for Sustainability, and the City of Bonn in collaboration with the German Development Cooperation Ministry, BMZ, State of North Rhine-Westphalia, as well as Sparkasse Bonn, the local bank from Bonn. This is, in fact, has been building on the legacy that ICLEI has been enjoying with its World Secretariat, which is at the same time the seat of the UN Climate Negotiation, Climate Secretariat in Bonn, Germany. Since 2010, we had a series of Resilient Cities Congress. We played this as an important opportunity to raise our profile in the climate action agenda, especially with the Paris Agreement, especially with the announcement that we are in the last decade. We had started to discuss that it is not just resilient cities, but daring cities. It's a concept that the cities are and urban leaders are daring to tackle climate emergency by acting together, knowing better, and leading together as well. In that sense, of course, our first series was overlapping with the very challenging moments of the first year of the COVID pandemic. So we start with a virtual mode. We have consulted through a number of series of consultations in the first year. We gradually continued to evolve to a hybrid mode, and last year was one of the opportunities that we have used the presence of the GIZ, one of the core partner of our event, their auditorium, and making use of the UN Climate Negotiations and World Conference Center, so that we continue to engage virtually, but also together with the in-person events. So what we are going through is that in the first couple of months of the year, we are reflecting on what we have achieved in the last conference, which is COP28. We had a webinar on the 26th of March. This was more like a recap of what we achieved. But today, we will particularly focus on how we build on and how we advance on these achievements. So, and in fact, prepare ourselves for the next encounter in June in Bonn, both through the UN climate negotiations, but also the in-person session of the Bonn Dialogues. And then throughout the summertime, we will continue with a virtual process. So let's remember our agenda for today. If we can switch to the next slide. We will start with our leaders to share their insights. We will start with a pre-recorded video from Mayor of Bonn, Katja Dörner, who is also leader of ICLEI's Global Executive Committee on climate action. We were expecting Mayor Axel Grael from Niterói, Brazil, but unfortunately he is having some health issues, and we are conveying our best wishes for his speedy recovery. I will briefly mention about what was the reason why we particularly invited Mayor Grael after the video from Mayor Dörner. We will then have a very brief opinion poll for the participants' engagement on the COP28 outcomes. And then our second slot will be with our colleagues from COP28 presidency and climate action champion, office and the GCOM, we will discuss on the details of what we are progressing on the implementation of CHAMP. The last part, or the third part, we will be delighted to hear the preparations of an important body under the UN climate negotiations, especially the Sharm el-Sheikh Mitigation, Ambition, and Implementation Work Program. We will have a dialogue with Lola, Vallejo, and at a certain moment, we will also enjoy the participation of Dr. Amr Abdel-Aziz. In the last part, we will go through our agenda in Bonn very briefly about day by day what's expected. So with this, I would like to invite Mayor Dörner to share her insights as the host and partner of Daring Cities 2024.
A warm welcome to my fellow panelists and to the global audience of this second webinar of the Daring Cities 2024. Since 2020, the Daring Cities have supported us in turning climate action into a climate emergency mode and in empowering the role of urban leaders in global agendas. At this point, we look back at COP28 leading to new momentum for climate action with ambitious targets by addressing root causes of the climate crisis and, in particular, by elevating multi-level action. And I'm proud to say that Daring Cities played a key role in the making of the COP28 UAE consensus. In Dubai, multi-level action was visible. I was pleased to see Germany endorsing the CHAMP initiative, the Coalition on High-Level Ambition, and proud to take the stage together with the German Ministry of Development and Ministry of Economic and Climate as a demonstration of good practice on multi-level action. However, the true achievements of COP28 and in particular of the CHAMP initiative will only show in 2025 in the outcome and decisions of COP30 in Belém. The next major milestone on this road will be COP29 in Baku. With high-level champion Naiga Apadarai, Azerbaijan has appointed a female leader and parliamentarian to lead the global climate action agenda. Before becoming mayor of Bonn, I was a member of parliament myself, and I highly appreciate this decision, which will benefit multi-level collaboration. It is crucial at this point to keep up our continued ambition and diligence in our dedicated work. This is why the Troika, arching from Dubai to Baku to Belém, is vital. And this is why, during COP28, I offered the Daring Cities Forum as a supporting platform to accelerate and stocktake the implementation of ambitious, inclusive and multi-level climate action. During the Daring Cities 2024 Bonn Dialogues on 3rd to 5th June, I'm hoping to welcome presidents and champions of both COP28 and COP29 in Bonn. And I'm looking forward to us having strategic dialogues with UNFCCC negotiators and CHAMP endorsers on implementing multi-level action. In my capacity as Vice President of the German Association of Cities, I am myself advocating a German CHAMP initiative under the auspice of the German Association of Cities. During Daring Cities 2024, we will also highlight town hall COPs as an innovative mechanism to connect climate emergency action to national and global efforts. With climate as a cost-cutting issue and in view of the emergency, Daring Cities will also present an opportunity to highlight the links and strengthen the synergies between climate, nature and land. On the local level, these links translate into solid action. I would like to thank my co-panelists for their dedicated leadership and vital contributions to global climate action. Let me close with my hope to see many of you here in Bonn or online for Daring Cities 2024 Cornerstone 2 in Bonn and beyond. Let us reflect, exchange and advocate for a world where local actions inspire global change. Thank you for daring to make a difference.
We also thank Mayor Dörner for her leadership, both implementing ambitious climate action in Bonn, her city, but also taking both a national mission like German Association of Cities, but of course inside ICLEI to make the connection between the global processes. And as you have heard, she is excited to welcome you all in June. And this message already gives her the passion that we really look forward to implementing the outcome from COP28. In all our webinars, we try to make sure voices from global north and south is visible. As we said, we were planning to have Mayor Axel Grael from Mayor of Niterói. He was, on behalf of the Brazilian leadership, he was attending the COPs in Glasgow, Sharm el-Sheikh, Dubai, both in the negotiations, but also action agenda. The reason why we particularly wanted him to join us is that he was one of the pioneering leaders who were 2 weeks ago in Belém, where the Brazilian cities, Amazonian cities, the Latin American cities, together with Minister of Cities of Brazil, Minister of Science and Technology, and Minister of Environment, and a number of global partners, including Urban Shift, have been gathering their first preparatory meetings towards COP30 in 2025. I must confess I was delighted to be there in person. I can see the atmosphere really very vividly. It was one of the first time that such an early preparation of a city, 2 years, almost 1.5 years before a COP has taken place, is showing the demonstration that Latin America and Brazil and Amazon are really putting a huge value to bring the climate activists and negotiators to feel the atmosphere in Amazon, how people are living in harmony with nature, how they are facing the challenge of urbanization, but also trying to make sure that there is an opportunity, a new climate era is being built. We will hopefully still explore the possibility of Mayor Niterói to join us in Bonn, along with other subnational leaders. But in between, we really wish him the best of health and speedy recovery on behalf of all the Daring Cities community. So, as you have heard, Mayor Dörner also mentioned about the CHAMP initiative, and we are delighted that we will have 3 distinguished partners who will be sharing about how the process is going on. But before going into their presentations, let's hear what is the audience, what is the community that is joining us here, how much they have been engaged in the CHAMP or COP28 outcomes. We have a small opinion poll. We really appreciate your feedback on how you have been engaging in this process at your local level or at your national level. The question is, has your local or subnational government had any dialogues with your national or federal governments regarding implementation of COP28 outcomes, including engagement in the CHAMP initiative? So you can choose yes, no. The other option is we have reached out, but we have not had success so far, or you may not be aware of any such efforts. So any signal about your engagement would give also a nice feedback to our panelists in the next couple of minutes. Katja, I think we'll keep this poll that is voting is continuing so far.
Yeah, I can give it a couple more seconds. But yeah, here comes the result. There you go.
So we have around 65 participants. Around 50% of them are not aware of such a dialogue taking place. 20% of the participants who responded has made an effort, which is, I think it's a good signal. 1 out of 5 is been making an effort. There has been quarter of it, no efforts yet, and there is some efforts, but not success. So this shows that this community is engaged in this process, and they are trying to keep the momentum high, so that then we can then share what's going on in June in the next month in Bonn. So with this, let's start with first of our guest Jamila from the High Level Action Champion office. Jamila has been a dear partner to us throughout the preparatory process, and we are so happy to have her continued leadership. In the previous webinar, we had received feedback from Dania, our colleague who was seconded to the champions team, but Jamila is working one-on-one with Razan Mubarak, and I'm happy to already alert you that we are expecting Razan Mubarak to join us in Bonn, hopefully, if all goes okay, inshallah. And Jamila will be here with us about the preparations from Razan throughout the year, in the year of the implementation for COP28. Jamila, thank you for joining us, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Yunus. Yeah, Dania is definitely the better half of the climate champions on the city's portfolio. And honestly, she did all the heavy lifting. Hi, everyone. Super happy to be with you. I think what we realized last year, especially with Asif's leadership as well, and I'm very happy that he's here to talk about the details of CHAMP. I mean, it's not that we realized there was a unique opportunity to elevate multi-level action like never before, really building on what COP27 did. And as part of the high-level champion remit really is to mobilize non-state actors into this global agenda of climate action and climate transition. But we all know, and you more than anyone else knows, that implementation is on a local level. But oftentimes, cities, subnational governments are hindered in how much they can design implementation because they don't have the full control over their budgets, they don't have the full control over the regulations that manage them, etc. And so this is really I think this is the core of organizations like ICLEI and other cities networks like GCOM, and we have Agat with us, who's also a leader in this space in her own right, and UCLG and many other of the contributors. And action is always stronger when it's through collaboration, which is why CHAMP is such a powerful tool. Now, the climate champions have been working with cities for quite some time through the work on the Race to Zero and the Race to Resilience. And what you start noticing is that cities are really a proof point, a key indicator in testing and measuring the progress on climate action, both the challenges as well as the enablers and the state of implementation, because it's such a difficult task to really monitor the state of implementation. And we saw last year that over 80% of our members in Race to Resilience, for example, were reporting on their action. And then you start getting insights into what actions are really meaningful. So for example, in adaptation, over 20% relied on nature-based solutions to deliver implementation. And we have really good examples in Mumbai with over 377,000 trees being planted in different locations in the city, as well as Paris looking at a citywide biodiversity action plan. And this then gives a flavor both of the power of subnationals, but also the importance of both what Danya calls a vertical and a horizontal type of collaboration, where you really need this collaboration between national, regional, subnational, and local government, but as well on a local level to really bring in different stakeholders together. And I think this is what Her Excellency Razan is really keen on pushing forward. So last year, we gained a lot of momentum on the political setup of really pushing forward this type of multi-level action. And this year, what we're trying to do is have regional dialogues, regional implementation to push this forward. And it's really blossoming on its own. And each one of the partners in this network is doing their part in working with their city members, with the national governments that have joined CHAMP, and facilitating these dialogues. The last point I do want to raise is that we are on a deadline to submit updated NDCs by COP30. And this is something that both through CHAMP, but also the multi-level action agenda is very keen on translating into NDCs, because this is the best way to guarantee that this is not lost through the hype of a COP or the hype of a local climate ambition summit. And so translating this multi-level governance into action needed into the NDCs guarantees that it will then be implemented in the delivery of climate transition plans. And this is our mission this year and leading up to COP30. This is our collective mission. I'll stop here. But yeah, I'm happy to be with you. Thanks.
Excellent, Jamila. And that is the point, really. A commitment is as good as its implementation, and to ensure supporting mechanisms and make sure the continuity of the efforts. That's why the Troika is also now an important mechanism. That's another innovation. As we said, we will hear more from Razan directly when she is joining us in Bonn. So thanks for this introductory remarks and updates. Asif, as the presidency, who is now responsible for the support of the implementation, how are things moving in the implementation phase, and then we will hear later on from Agat about the networks, how they are supporting the presidency on this process.
Sure. Thank you, Yunus, for this wonderful platform, and really looking forward to the in-person Daring Cities dialogues taking place in Bonn in June. And thanks also to Jamila. It's always a tough act to follow her anywhere, but I'll try my best. I do want to say it's encouraging to see the preliminary results of the poll that was conducted at the start of the call, and it's great that so many have actually made the effort to reach out to their national governments who have endorsed Trump to engage. And I would also encourage all of you who have had some success in those efforts to engage your national governments. It would be very useful if you're able to share what those interactions and experiences were through Yunus and the ICLEI team, so we're able to get a better picture of what's happening in some of the 72 countries that have endorsed JAMP. Very quickly, I want to rewind the tape a little bit back to December last year. COP28 took place in Dubai, as you know, and this really significant outcome from the conference was the global stocktake decision. So the global stocktake, as you all may know, is a process that's mandated under the Paris Agreement to take place every 5 years, which, as the name would suggest, really takes stock of progress against all the commitments that countries have made towards limiting global temperature rise to well below 2 degrees Celsius and preferably below 1.5 degrees Celsius. And we knew the prognosis was grim well before COP28 ever started. But the reason the outcome of the global stocktake was significant was not because it showed us that we were falling short, but because it galvanized the international community to produce a roadmap to recalibrate and correct that trajectory and really highlight how we are going to go from a world where we are failing to limit global temperature rise towards a world where we are successful in that endeavor. And like Jamila said, action is always stronger when it's collaborative, and that is nowhere is that more applicable than when it comes to climate action, because the successful mitigation of global temperature rise or limitation of global temperature rise cannot be done by one person, one country, one organization, or even a few. The actions of everyone, all countries around the world, all stakeholders within the process are critical to helping achieve the transformative change that's required to make sure we live in a sub 1.5 degree world moving forward. And the global stocktake recognizes this, especially in its third section on international cooperation, where it emphasizes that collaboration, not just between parties to the UNFCCC, so not just between national governments, but between national governments and non-state actors, which includes cities and subnational authorities, includes business, includes civil society, indigenous peoples, youth, and so on, is absolutely critical towards achieving meaningful progress towards the goals of the Paris Agreement and addressing the crisis of climate change and its more severe impacts, and really raising ambition. And that's something we saw across the 2 weeks of COP28, emphasized again and again, is that partnership truly is what will raise ambition and accelerate implementation. And that's really where JAMP, the spirit of JAMP, was born. So the global stocktake, while not referencing JAMP or specific voluntary initiatives that were launched under the COP28 action agenda, necessarily, gave specific signals to what kind of action and cooperation and collaboration was encouraged. And that includes international cooperative efforts between national governments and cities, states, and regions like CHAMP. So it's very much a part of the DNA of CHAMP to respond to the calls made under the global stocktake. So a little reminder on what CHAMP really entails and what national governments that endorsed CHAMP last year have signed on to. And really distilling it in, we really distilled it into 6 key commitments. The first of which was national governments committing to consult with subnational governments to determine avenues for subnational climate action to contribute to national climate commitments and strategies, as well as their subsequent implementation and monitoring. The second one is in the same vein, national governments committing to work collaboratively with subnational governments to unlock and realize mitigation and adaptation opportunities at the subnational level, and involving them at the same time in the review, design, and implementation of national commitments and strategies. So ensuring there's kind of a feedback loop, pardon me, that ensures that there is a certain amount of synchronicity between what's happening at the national level and the action that's taking place at the local level. The third commitment under CHAMP was around creating more inclusive institutional and informal processes to enable subnational governments to contribute to further enhancing NDCs and integrating local and territorial baseline information, targets, and actions across all sectors and industries. I know we're going to be hearing a little bit about the built environment later on, and that's definitely one area, for example, where we see this multi-level cooperation being really critical. The fourth commitment under CHAMP around NDC investment really encourages, in an unprecedented way, to national governments to include subnational government projects in their climate-related investment priorities, in their NDC investment plans, and help subnational governments to secure the resources and finances from public and private finance sources to help them begin or scale up implementation. And the last 2 commitments really are around dialogue and review. So the fifth one is around conducting voluntary national reviews of progress at the national level around implementing CHAMP, including through existing processes such as the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development VNR process. And the last one is around meeting annually in the lead up to COP30 amongst CHAMP endorsers at a global high-level political dialogue on multi-level climate action, where good practices and lessons learned in implementing CHAMP will be shared and then subsequently compiled into a report to be presented at COP later in the year. And we're very much on track with rolling out this agenda for this year, but also for next year, with an eye on COP30. In addition to the engagement that's going to be taking place at Bonn, at Daring Cities, as well as at the SBs themselves in collaboration with the UNFCCC in June. We're looking towards September in New York for the annual high-level political dialogue, and then hoping to have a strong presence at COP29 in Baku as well, and then calibrating for an equally important 2025, which will culminate at COP30. So I'm sure Yunus is going to talk more about specific events and engagements later on, so I'm going to leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Asif. Yunus just dropped off. I guess he had a connection issue, but hopefully he'll be back in a second. In the meantime, Agat, if you could share your insights and bounce off what Asif just said, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you very much for inviting me to join this panel today discussing CHAMP in particular, but the wider concept of multi-level governance and the fantastic roadmap laid out ahead of ourselves by yourselves, dear colleagues at ICLEI, through the Daring Cities program, but also with interventions from both Jamila and Asif so far. Apologies. Good afternoon and good morning to all of our participants in today's webinar. I'm delighted to share some perspectives onto the current state of engagement and implementation of CHAMP. But firstly, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Agathe Cavicchioli. I am currently the Deputy Director of International Advocacy at the Global Covenant of Mayors for Climate and Energy, or GCOM for short. GCOM and myself have been very lucky to have the chance to enter in a really fantastic dialogue and eventually incredibly productive dialogue with the COP28 presidency all of last year, really, to lead to the creation of the CHAMP initiative and its launch in Dubai at COP28. I really want to thank the COP28's leadership, as well as the high-level champion for COP28 that have made it possible that such a transformational initiative was developed and eventually endorsed by 72 national governments. Now, I say it is transformational because from the perspective of a city and local government network like GCOM, and on behalf of the more than 13,000 local governments, including cities, states, and regions around the world, CHAMP really is a game-changing initiative, which means that from this point on, those countries that have endorsed the initiative have signaled their commitments to enhancing dialogue with local governments, to improving how they are reflecting priorities, as well as the actions that cities, towns, and regions are taking towards the implementation of the Paris Agreement. And ultimately, this provides the best opportunity when by COP30, national governments have to submit their revised NDCs. It provides the best opportunity for those NDCs to be truly inclusive, probably more ambitious, but more to the point, those NDCs will better reflect a real sort of all of society approach to climate action by not only providing a picture of what the national or federal governments are planning in terms of policies and actions to deliver the Paris Agreement, but also what their subnational and local governments are doing. So this, like I mentioned, is really significant. It means as well that this can create new opportunities for funding for cities. It can help cities and local governments. It can help draw attention to their potential against mitigation and adaptation objectives at a national scale, as well as an international scale. So GCOM and a number of partners, many of which are present in today's call, that have supported CHAMP throughout its development last year, remain really committed to its success. I'd love to share with you how we, as a little coalition supporting CHAMP, are viewing its implementation, share some tactics as well, to encourage a replication of engagement across the world so that you and the organizations you represent may be inspired, maybe in your own countries or regions, to take action to support national governments deliver their CHAMP pledge, as well as to support subnational governments also seize the opportunity. Because although the CHAMP pledge is a commitment that was made by national governments, the subnational governments are also obviously strong beneficiaries from this, and therefore also have a role to play in ensuring their national governments are held accountable to their pledge and that they proceed to taking action towards the implementation of CHAMP. So we can look into a little bit of detail what that might look like and what subnational governments might want to do. To ensure a successful implementation of CHAMP, GCOM and the coalition of partners that, as I mentioned, many of you are probably present on the call today and have already been named several times in this call, are taking a two or three-pronged approach, if you'd like. Firstly, we are in a mission to build a lot of commitment, a lot of consensus, and a lot of momentum behind CHAMP. It was a big turning point that it was adopted at COP28, but it's really important that it remains well and alive all the way through to COP30 and even beyond. CHAMP isn't a time-bound initiative. Obviously, its first opportunity is to deliver more inclusive and more ambitious NDCs, but the principles of multi-level partnerships and governance that are enshrined in CHAMP are applicable beyond the NDCs due in 2025. And in fact, they may be transferable to other processes, multilateral processes and environmental conventions. So on the one hand, we'll be doing a lot of work ensuring that there's a steady drumbeat of promotion and support for CHAMP. And we invite any partners wishing to participate in this effort to also support the promotion of CHAMP within the UNFCCC process. A second-pronged strategy is in relation to direct engagement with national governments. Obviously, 72 national governments have endorsed CHAMP, and now is the time for them to start taking concrete measures to deliver their commitments to CHAMP. These concrete measures may include organizing dialogues or workshops with subnational governments, soliciting input, building pipelines of projects, and other mechanisms that can help take a picture of the contributions that subnational governments can contribute into the NDC process, and identifying how through national government mechanisms those may be better supported and more quickly implemented for more results. A number of international partners will be working on very specific bilateral engagement with certain countries. Anyone is welcome to enter such dialogues with national governments. If some people on the line that we have already heard have started doing so, we really encourage anyone to continue. And for those of you that answered the poll indicating that you hadn't started yet, we'd be delighted to share some tools and advice on how to do that. Lastly, the third-pronged branch, if you'd like, of the strategy is, of course, mobilizing and engaging subnational governments. They are, at the end of the day, those that will benefit strongly from the CHAMP initiative, and we invite subnational governments around the world to take action to identify within their ranks and departments, within city or regional administrations, to identify if they are already in contact with national government bodies or departments with regards to climate strategy planning or the NDCs. We encourage these subnational governments to advocate for their inclusion in these discussions at national level, to create or to strengthen platforms where, along with their peers, peer mayors, peer governors, or presidents of regions, they can discuss national climate strategies and plans with their national governments, and also ask for individual or tailored dialogues with different ministry portfolios that will be in charge of different aspects of national strategy. Lastly, we encourage anyone and all to participate in or to initiate advocacy activities, such as by issuing public calls to the national governments that have endorsed CHAMP, reminding them of their commitments and extending offers of support to ensure their implementation. We also encourage subnational governments to really promote strongly their greatest climate projects and those that could benefit from further national government support or international and domestic finance supports. Social media, short videos, interviews, anything that can help draw attention to the critical contribution that cities, states, towns, and regions can make to national strategies are also strongly encouraged. And with that, I'll conclude my quick presentation and hand back over to our hosts. I don't know if I've seen Yunus come back on. Yes, you have. Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for being flexible and resilient enough to keep the momentum going forward. And I'm very happy to see also Mr. Abdel-Aziz, Amr Abdel-Aziz, also joining us together with Lola Vallejo. I would not like to further delay because we are also trying to hear from them what is the mission of the group that they're leading. They have heard about our activities on a volunteer basis, but the UNFCCC negotiations, the mitigation program, what is the offer from your side? What is your expectation? How we can contribute and what can we achieve together? I see both of you, Dr. Amr Abdel-Aziz and Lola Vallejo. I'll leave it to you how you'd like to share your slots. And many thanks for joining us in today's call.
Thank you very much, Yunus. I would leave Lola to present because I have to leave in a few minutes, but I'm really grateful for the invitation and I don't want to eat much of the time. Please, Lola, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Amr. Thanks everyone for giving us the opportunity to talk about the Sharm el-Sheikh Mitigation, Ambition and Implementation Work Program. I'm really humbled to see the number of nationalities represented in this webinar, and I hope you find it useful. So basically, I'll give first a little bit of a feedback about what the Mitigation Work Program is. We were set up at the end of COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh, hence the name. And our objective is really to have a space within the negotiations at UNFCCC to focus on the how to scale up mitigation ambition in this critical decade. So effectively keeping 1.5 within reach. And we also have to do this in a manner that complements the global stocktake that concluded in Dubai. We deliver on this mandate through several activities and outputs. Mostly we have to organize at least 2 global dialogues as well as investment-focused events, which bring together a wide range of stakeholders. So effectively, we're convening discussions both about the how do you pursue mitigation, but also how do you deliver the investments that will make this mitigation possible. It's not just about investment, but of course it's a key component of the discussion and one of high interest in the context of the UNFCCC. So looking back at what we delivered last year, our topic for the year was accelerating the just energy transition, which, as you know, as you've heard from the GST outcome, was a key topic for last year's discussion. We had a first event in Bonn, in the margins of the SBs, which brought about 250 participants, and the second one in Abu Dhabi, which brought a lot more, near 450. And the first one was focusing mostly on power sector, the second one on transport, so reducing emissions in transport systems. So very wide topics. In addition to these 2 dialogues, we also have the possibility to hold additional events, including in the margins of the regional climate weeks. And in addition to these activities, we have to produce something. So a summary after each dialogue is produced, led by the Secretariat. And we have to focus it on what are the key findings, opportunities, and barriers that can inform country in their mitigation action. And after these summary reports, on the basis of the summary reports, the SB chair can draft a decision for proposal that can be negotiated by parties at each COP. So based on the summary report of each dialogue. In addition to that, my co-chair and I have the honor of presenting the summary report at the high-level ministerial roundtable on pre-2030 ambition, which takes place every year at COP. So this is what happened basically last year in terms of framing activities and outputs. Now, interestingly, if you look at our topic for this year, our topic is squarely about cities, starting with buildings and urban system. So as you may remember, we'll have at least 2 events this year. The first one is scheduled very shortly on the 27th of May in Bonn, and the investment-focused event will take place on the morning of the 28th and of the 29th. Now, because we have to focus somehow these dialogues, we've decided to make public some subtopics to really give a focus to these discussions. And we've decided to focus this first event on the topic of buildings. So the first subtopic will be focusing on how to reduce operational emissions. So basically the heating, the cooling, and the appliances that the buildings operate on. And the second subtopic is how to design building envelope for efficiency, meaning how do you both retrofit the existing building stock, which is a particular concern in developed countries, which have a huge building stock already, but also how do you set up new construction standards to make sure that cities of the future are resilient and fit for purpose in terms of emissions. And lastly, how do you reduce embodied emissions? And here we touch upon the question of building materials. So this is the first event. As I mentioned, we'll have a second one later in the year. I can't say yet when it will take place. It will most likely focus more directly on the topic of urban systems. And we hope to have a host and a confirmation of the date soon enough so that you can plan your attendance to both, or your contributions to both, if that is of interest. I will say just one quick thing. Of course, we focus on mitigation, but we really recognize that when you plan for buildings and for cities, it really doesn't make sense to dissociate mitigation and adaptation. So that's a very personal note, but we're aware of it. It's just that our mandate and focus is squarely on mitigation, and particularly how to reduce the existing stock of emissions, and also how to prevent further growth in emissions going forward. Now, we've come together with my co-chair to suggest some potential areas of collaboration with ICLEI members. First, one thing that I mentioned very quickly is the events we organized are aimed at really changing slightly the nature of discussion within the UNFCCC. We would really encourage participations of experts and practitioners. Unfortunately, because of budget constraints, we can only register one in-person participant per country. But we do encourage virtual participation as well. And we hope that this is also a way in which countries can involve their experts and their practitioners, of which, many might be in the room here. And there's several ways in which you can participate. First, we'll have presentations on opportunities, barriers, best practice, and actionable solutions. So we're still building the program as we speak. We're also drawing from a range of submissions that have been made by countries and non-party stakeholders. But we're also looking for facilitators to support discussions in breakout rooms. Because we want to have as interactive discussions as possible, we break the countries in 3 parallel breakout groups. And of course, even if you don't have a formal role as a facilitator or presenter, you're still very welcome to participate to the discussion, to bring to the attention of your country participant, or in your own capacity, the good experiences or the difficulties that you encounter and on which you think a multilateral discussion might benefit. There's a second area of collaboration which is very close to our heart. It's the investment-focused event is both a place to discuss on structural barriers to investment in mitigation, but we also want it to become a place which spurs, actual implementation and a place to facilitate project developers meeting project financiers. So we've called this a pitch hub, and we're facilitating this presentation to potential financiers. We're right now in the process of convening a range of financiers. We've done this at the previous Global Dialogue and Investment Focused event, and we've had around 16, if I recall correctly, projects presented from every regions of the world, and we don't have the full feedback of what happened, but we know at least a few have progressed based on the discussions that were facilitated through the pitch hub. So we'd like the mitigation work program to also deliver concretely for participants. And I think beyond these two suggestions, of course, we're very happy to continue exchanging through ICLEI activities, and we hope that not only at the next dialogue, but also at the one which will take place in the fall, we can have greater collaboration and a good participation for representative of this network. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Lola. Thank you, Amr. First of all, wish you the best of luck and success. This is a very, very important task. For the colleagues who are in this call, maybe I can give an important point. This has been on the way to Paris. We had a couple of workshops and forums, but this is really very interesting because last year's discussions on the mitigation work program played a crucial role in paragraph 28, the most important paragraph of the global stocktake. So imagining that the outcomes really feed into the decisions, and that perfectly matches because in Dubai, as you remember, Asif mentioned, we have paragraph 161 where parties are urged for multi-level action. So imagine the CHAMP initiative, imagine these decisions, and this work program is simply breaking down how we can build further. And having this discussion a year before COP30, when nations are still in the process of designing their NDCs, is an excellent opportunity for us to make sure that the connection is done so that we can much more comfortably be sure that there is now a full connection between the ambition, but also the plans in the national level, and of course the financing. So that's, I think, the beauty of this process. So we would like to do our best that we get the best out of it, of this process. Obviously, time is short, but we will do our best, I believe, on the next couple of months. And maybe if we now go to our colleagues, if we can share us the slides that we prepare for our agenda in Bonn during this couple of days, how we will interact, and we even have a proposal to have one more additional opportunity to interact with the co-chairs as well. So very briefly, the climate talks in Bonn is 2 weeks. It starts from 3rd of June until 13th of June. And as Lola mentioned, the mitigation work program dialogue and workshop is the week before. So we have a bit of a gap in terms of how to make the connection. So in that sense, the first day will be like a procedural participation. We will be participating to the reception hosted by City of Bonn and UNFCCC and German government in the evening of Monday. And the second day, 4th of June, will be our session where we'll be in the GIZ auditorium outside the UNFCCC. This will be the first ever CHAMP endorsers roundtable in the UNFCCC. This will be by invitation to the endorsers of the CHAMP initiative. The second event will be starting at 11. It will be public, and that is the moment where we will meet with Razan Al-Mubarak and Nigar Arpadaray, along with the other leaders from CHAMP endorsers and mayors around the world. In the afternoon, there will be breakout groups. We'll go through this in another session, in another slide. On the 5th, we will be back into the UNFCCC, and there we will have a starting point with our traditional daily briefing among our constituency. At 12:30, we will have a dialogue of the UNFCCC Global Climate Action Agenda, Marrakesh Partnership, and the COP28 presidents with all parties. who will be open for all their participation. And that is also an opportunity probably to report or hear from the outcome of the first dialogue of the cities of the mitigation work program, possibly with the co-chairs also joining us, hopefully. On the same day, we would be discussing with the co-chairs whether we can have, because knowing that during their cities we will have a good group of subnationals being present in Bonn at the UNFCCC talks, maybe we can consider a special dialogue of the co-chairs so that they can go deeper of what they heard from the week before with the negotiators and investment plans with our subnational leaders across the world. That could be a nice opportunity. Afterwards, we will have a discussion on loss and damage with United Nations University, and this will be followed by a reception. This is the basic agenda, and we are expecting there may be more agendas coming up. We are hearing more opportunities. Let's go to the next slide. And this is the agenda on the 4th of June. In addition to those plenary discussions, we will focus on the multi-level action and urbanization, dig into deeper, just transition, the IPCC upcoming report, how are we advancing? There was a scoping meeting taking place, and how we will make the connection between climate, land, and nature. This will be our breakout sessions, and then we will feed into those discussions to our roadmap towards Baku, and in particular Belem, the LGMA constituency that we're representing. We will discuss how to move things forward. As you see, there's an intense couple of days in Bonn on the first week of June. We will do our best that we also have participation in the mitigation work program sessions on the 27th, 28th of 9. And we would like to close this discussion of today's. We are getting to the end of it with one last poll. Just to check from our audience, I see a very lively participation in the chat box. I see even familiar faces like Karin Taipele, our president from the year 2000, up to one of the youngest mayors from Uganda, who has just received the Bloomberg Action Fund, and colleagues from Bogota, from Canada. They're all attending this call and with their participation in their chat box. So it's so good to see them. So the question is, what is your plan to be participating in the agenda of daring cities on the 4th and 5th of June? Can we show this poll? Is it up?
Yep, it is. So I'm just giving it a couple more seconds, and all right.
So
there
please
you go.
indicate how you would wish to attend. We have 50 respondents, and out of 50, we have 30% planning to be in person in Bonn. That's great opportunity. 50% of them is planning to join us online, especially the broadcast. We have a huge interest to join the virtual sessions between August. Actually, in August and October, we will announce the list of activities between August and October in the Daring Cities in-person meetings on the 4th and 5th of June. And there's probably our colleagues who are the usual suspects who will be joining us in all this throughout the journey. I'm aware that we have the last minute. I don't want to open the floor, but Katja, were there any burning questions that came from the participants in the chat box that, especially with Lola or Asif or Jamila, we should be responding?
Yeah, there was just one really maybe for Lola, how people can participate in the third event on the 28th to 29th of May. So if you could just pop that in
Sure.
the chat. Yeah.
I mean, very, very quickly, there's the NGO focal points have 2 seats for virtual participation. So you can either be nominated through the NGO focal points, or you can also be nominated as a virtual participant through the focal point of your country, because they will have 1 in-person representative, but also 4 or even 5 slots for virtual participation. So they have space, and so make sure that you get in touch with them. If you have any difficulty identifying who to contact, make sure to drop me a line. Yeah, I'm happy to be contacted to facilitate that and put you in touch. Otherwise, the MWP Secretariat has an email that I put in the chat.
So just to complement Lola's position, updates on this participation, we just received from the official invitation from Secretariat for all the NGOs like trade unions, women and gender, business, including local government. So we will also use this opportunity. But as you have heard, the spaces are limited with logistics and also resources. Therefore, I think we hope we can make sure this dialogue between the co-chairs during the daring cities. This will be an informal gathering, of course, but I think it's very valuable if Lola and Amr at least and any other members of the mitigation work program, based on your plannings, the dialogue of the subnational participants during the 5th of June could be really an opportunity for you to feed to Lola and Amr what are the points that you would like to raise so that we can expand our opportunities of interacting and feeding into this discussion. Because after these consultations, the co-chairs will make their report, and that report is the one that will make the real way towards the end of the year in Baku, the negotiation. So it's a long journey, but we are very excited. We have the good news is that we have more resources in terms of opportunities of engagement. We have supporting mechanisms. Presidency is helping with us. You will hear in June, Azerbaijan is also doing their best to support the multi-level agenda, urbanization agenda. There will be more announcements coming up. So the message to our members across the world is that this is the moment where we have to be more and more actively involved in our multi-level collaboration and make sure our potentials, our wishes are visible in the national processes, and the UNFCCC negotiators hear us through appropriate channels. I think with this hopefully positive messaging, I'd like to thank all the speakers and panelists for their time. I'm very sorry for a short break in the call, but I'm sure the dialogue was fruitful. I would like to thank very much to the participants for their active contributions. It was really nice to see all the inputs. We will share the links to you. We'll check with Lola and Amr about how we can share their presentation to the participants so that they're also aware, and stay connected for upcoming agendas so that we can make sure the best ways of connection to both mitigation program, but the UNFCCC events that will take place in June in Bonn. With that, I will wish you a nice day and event, and stay safe and be bold and be active. Thank you very much.